Let's talk about Chrono Trigger. In the year of our Lord, 1992, Hironobu Sakaguchi, creator of the renowned Final Fantasy, was traveling with his buddies on a wacky road trip to America. He and his best buds were researching computer graphics in the old US of A when they decided to work on a project together. Now, did I mention that the two people he was traveling with was Yuji Horii, the guy behind Dragon Quest, and Akira Toriyama, who was one of its key artists, and you know, that motherfucker that made Dragon Ball and can really draw that one face somewhat well. After getting the band together, they added a team of over 50 developers, some of which being Masahiro Kato, who did some of the work on the original Ninja Gaiden trilogy, Akihito Matsuai, the battle designer on Final Fantasy 4 and 5, and Yoshinori Kitase, who also worked on those same Final Fantasy titles as well. This game is a jamboree of game developers. You got guys like Yasuki Hon, who worked on Xenogears and the Xeno series with Monolith Soft. And of course you have Tetsuya Nomura. We all know this guy. He worked on Kingdom Hearts, and he worked on Final Fantasy 7. Fucking 7. Now this game itself, it was planned originally for a 1994 release, but was pushed back to 1995, obviously because they wanted to make this the best game ever. This fucking game, I won't lie to you. Chrono Trigger is one of my favorite games of all time. I have played this game every year from start to finish since it came out. The gameplay on this is some of the best on the SNES. So if you take the active time battle system that's seen in most recent Final Fantasy games at the time, battles you'll find are focused on you and your teammates making different techniques or techs, using magic, and all that fun stuff you're used to in common JRPGs from the early to mid-90s. However, in Chrono Trigger, the techs that you would learn would open up other team attacks called double and triple techs, and this would allow for massive damage, and would use some massive amounts of wondrous Mode 7 graphics, making for a very fluid and exciting battle system. The story of Chrono Trigger starts pretty simply. You're going to save a princess that fell through a time gate, and then, through a series of events, you learn that the world's infected by some weird parasite god thing, and it's called Lavos. So now you have to go back and forth through time on wacky misadventures and try to figure out how the fuck to save the world. Now, based on who you are with, or when you actually decided to beat the game, you're rewarded with one of the many different endings. Now, while feeling relatively linear, Chrono Trigger does give you a chance to change different aspects of the world, and it rewards you with both powerful equipment and in some cases closure for some of the characters in the game. And while it does feel like every other Square RPG, or any other JRPG for example, on the system, it does actually have an overall feeling of fun, and the difficulty level it's pretty tame. So for those that are not big on JRPGs or RPGs in general, I would say it's a good way to get them to kind of jump into the genre. Because again, it's pretty cool, and it's really fun. And you know what? Let's talk about the music as well. Chrono Trigger has one of the best soundtracks you're gonna find on the Super Nintendo. Some of the works of acclaimed video game composer Yasunori Matsuda, this really sets the mood and creates amazing atmosphere, and honestly, it's really some of the best you're gonna find on the system. One of the more heavily remixed soundtracks as well, you can find a wide variety on sites like Overclocked Remix or even search YouTube. Just open up a separate window, search it out, you will find some amazing music, honestly. Do it. Do it right now. Press pause, go do it, and then come back. I'll wait. The game would go on to become a bestseller in Japan, and Nintendo Power would name it Square's biggest game ever. It would also win awards from magazines like EGM, and its PS1 port would win some favor with Game Informer as well. And hell, IGN fucking loves this game too. Truthfully, I don't think you'll find Chrono Trigger on the bottom of anybody's list. It's actually a really popular game. Its popularity had it re-released twice, once on PS1 and again on the DS, and then after the DS release, we saw that ported to the iPhone and the Android systems as well. And of course, you could always find it on Nintendo's own Virtual Console. So you have a lot of different ways to play, because it's a great fucking game. Due to the popularity of Chrono Trigger, it did get 2 sequels. You have Radical Dreamers that was released on Nintendo's Saddleview service. It was only released in Japan, and it was made by Masaru Kato. He felt that there was a lot of unfinished business in Chrono Trigger. Now, if you want to kind of play around with it, you can find an online translated version, but honestly, you'd get a little bit more of the second title, which obviously is Chrono Cross. Now, there is a lot more to Chrono Cross, and we're going to talk about that in another video, because there's just way too much to touch on that particular title. In conclusion, I would say this game is a labor of love, and it really shows. The sum of all of its parts really flowed together and gave us one amazing game. So if you haven't played it, I highly recommend it. If you can find it on the DS, that's probably one of the better versions you'll find, but obviously you can find it on the PSN, or you can play it on the Virtual Console, and if you have the money, you can get the SNES cartridge, but you're gonna have to dish out a lot of money for it in some cases. But you know, I guess some things just get better with time.